and our current president's administration. On June the 7th, 2001, President George W. Bush sent CI Director George Tenet to Jerusalem to promote his roadmap to peace, the continuation of the failed Oslo Accord that his father, George Bush Sr., had started. The very next day, Tropical Storm Allison hit Texas, the home state of President George W. Bush, closed the George Bush Airport for 2 days. Allison caused a major flooding disaster throughout all the path in Texas and the mid-Atlantic. It killed 41 people, of which 27 drowned from flooding. The storms also caused $7 billion in damage, making Allison the deadliest and costliest tropical storm on record in the United States of America. Oddly enough, Allison continued for 5 long days until George Tenet left Jerusalem. And then Allison settled down. Isn't that a coincidence? Kind of bizarre, ain't it? Well, then, of course, we all know about 9/11. But did you ever know the story behind that? What led up to this attack? It's pretty incredible. I want you to pay close attention to these details about September 11th, 2001. On August the 23rd, President Bush challenged Yasser Arafat on CNN News. I remember watching it and being so proud of George Bush. I was so proud of what he said. Bush suggested that Arafat, quote, put 100% effort into stopping terrorism if he wants Israel to negotiate. Because, folks, guess what? Every year that's gone by, every time they made this negotiating peace, it was a bunch of lies. God told them, don't do it. They'll destroy you. God says, don't do it. Just don't do it. Well, of course, as a result of the President of the United States saying that on national worldwide news, Saudi Arabia's King Abdullah is infuriated by the comment of President, and he tells Ambassador Bandar to immediately leave the United States because Bush supports Israel. On his way out, Bandar meets with Condoleezza Rice while Bush was on vacation. Bandar tells Rice how unacceptable Bush's comments were, threatened to withhold oil, and says that he's leaving the nation in disgust. Rice reports that to President Bush, who immediately issues a written letter to Bandar stating, quote, Palestinian people have the right to live in their own state, in their own homeland, unquote. Well, then on September the 7th, 11 days later, a jubilant Bandar returns to America, meets with Bush, Cheney, Rice, and Colin Powell to hammer out the details and announce to the world, quote, the creation of a Palestinian state. That's on September 7th. The negotiations and details continued until September 9th. Then on September 10th, Bandar along with Cheney, Rice, and Powell finished President Bush's plans to create a Palestinian nation in Israel in 2005. This is all on, you can go to the White House website and go through all their papers. You can put in the date and it'll pull it all up. You can read everything, get all the pictures, everything you need. Bandar calls his office to inform them the agreement is finally finished and that the United States was willing to stand with the Palestinian plan. That was on September 10th. Guess what happens 24 hours later? The next morning, 2 airliners are hijacked and flown into the World Trade Center. Both towers come crashing down. A third plane crashes into the Pentagon, and a fourth crashes in the field in Pennsylvania. Flashed across televisions around the globe, the world witnessed the worst terrorist act in history. Nearly 3,000 people die in a few short minutes. And isn't it kind of bizarre that this took place within 24 hours of when we told Israel, you don't have a right to the land anymore? Well, just a few months down the road, we find out that these people are hating us because of our stance with Israel. Well, then we get to July the 6th, 2005. We find out Prime Minister Tony Blair, the president of the G8 nations, which incidentally is United Kingdom, France, Germany, Brazil, Italy, Russia, Canada, United States, and the European Union, they sponsored a meeting in Scotland from the 6th to the 8th. During the G8 meeting, President Bush and other leaders agreed to give $3 billion to the Palestinian Authority to once again do what they've never done. Well, on July 7th, the same day that the declaration was to be announced by England's Tony Blair, London was hit by 4 Islamic suicide bombings, killing 52 and injuring 700. Then the next day, Hurricane Dennis re-intensifies, hits Florida, and causes $2.5 billion in damage, almost the exact amount that Bush promised the Palestinians. Isn't that a weird coincidence? That it would happen just within 24 hours? Kind of a weird coincidence, ain't it? By the way, you can get your G8, you can get your United Nations, you can do anything you want to. You can gather all your nations, but I got news for you. If you ain't got God on your side, you're in trouble. It don't matter how outnumbered you are. No matter how small Israel appears, brother, when you got Jehovah on your side, the war's over. And when we read verses like this in Zechariah 12, verse 3, and in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people, and all that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth gather together against it. God says, you attack us, talking about him and his land, you're going to cut yourself to pieces. Okay? Now what's this? This is really amazing. This one should shake us up a little bit. And I'm skipping tons of stuff. I'm just trying to give you some highlights. During the month of August of 2005, with unparalleled pressure from the United States, over 9,000 pleading Jewish settlers were forcibly removed from their homes in the Gaza Strip, known in the scripture as the Mountains of Israel. And you can see a picture of it right there. This was an unbelievable move on the United States to force Jews out of their promised land given to them by God. On August the 15th, 2005, thousands of Israeli Defense Force soldiers began to deliver eviction notices to Israeli settlers who for 35 years had lived in the land of Gaza and northern Samaria. And those eviction notices told them that they had 48 hours to get out of their home and out of their homeland. Now let's stop here for a second. Let's do some figuring for just a minute. See, people don't think about this. What would you think if the United States would come to your neighborhood? Let's say that you had a farm and you'd lived there for 35 years. And they walk up to you and hand you a piece of paper and say, you have 48 hours to get out of here. Now, and they did that to all your neighbors. Well, what are you doing? Well, we're going to give this to some Islamic people that want to come and live in your land. Now what? Yeah, we're going to give your land to the Islamic people. Now wait a minute. I bought this land. I've had this land this is where I've raised my kids. We got lots of memories here. This is where I've had my babies growing up. This is where my grandkids have come and played. You're not taking our land. Listen, you got 48 hours. Either you get out or we're going to bulldoze it down. Now, how would you feel about that? Well, let me ask you a question. Don't you think Jewish people have any other feelings than what we would have?